It's just before 5 a.m. when the night finally fractures. Toni Sharpless is behind the wheel, driving away from a gathering in Penn Valley. Inside the car, it's not just tension. It's rage. Toni and Crystal are locked in it now. No filters, no holding back. Just accusations, hurt feelings, raised voices, old wounds, new ones. Outside, the night is still echoing. Laughter from the party, side eyes, the sting of words that shouldn't have been said. The kind of tension that doesn't fade. It just follows you home. The car slows, tires crunch over the gravel. Toni pulls over, turns to Crystal, and snaps, "Get the F out of my car." It's only a few hundred feet from the house, close enough to walk back, far enough that when Crystal steps out, Toni is suddenly all alone. The door slams, the Pontiac drives off, and that is the last time anyone will ever see her. Less than an hour later, her phone will go dark. Toni and her car will disappear without a trace. To understand how the night fractured so quickly, we have to go back a few hours and trace what we actually know. By the time Toni Sharpless went out that night, she was already running on fumes. 2 long shifts back to back, hardly any sleep. She worked as an infectious disease nurse at Lancaster General Hospital. 12-hour shifts that left little time for anything else. Some reports later suggested she'd been awake for as long as 36 hours. She had a daughter, a full-time job, real responsibilities waiting in the morning, and rarely had nights out. Toni was 29, living at home again with her mother, Donna Nebel, and her stepfather, Peter. She was also really trying to rebuild. Earlier that year, Toni had completed a rehabilitation program. She'd struggled with substance use in the past, self-medicating as many do, and she'd been open about it with her family. After a difficult stretch, she finally received a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. It was a turning point. With the right treatment, the right medications, she was starting to feel hopeful again. When she asked her parents to watch her daughter that Saturday night, they said yes, but they were uneasy. Not just because she was exhausted, because of who she was going out with. Crystal Johns, an old friend, but not what they considered a safe one. The two had a falling out nearly a decade earlier, something unresolved. I think it was a case where Crystal had no one to go with, Donna would later say, and talked Toni into going along. Still, Toni brushed off their concerns. She told them she'd be fine, and just after 9:30 p.m., she walked out the door. They left together in Toni's car, a black 2002 Pontiac Grand Prix. They stopped briefly at Crystal's place, then headed toward King of Prussia, where they visited Ice nightclub. Later, they made their way back into Philadelphia and stopped at G Lounge, a late-night club in Center City. There, they met up with Crystal's friend Matt Green and Matt's brother Willie. They were escorted straight to the VIP lounge. Champagne started flowing. Nothing about the night, at least at first, seemed unusual. It unfolded gradually, one stop after another. The kind of night where the fun stretches longer than planned. Sometime just after 3 a.m., Toni and Crystal left the city again. This time heading toward Penn Valley. They were going to a small gathering at the home of Willie Green, a professional basketball player for the 76ers, in Lower Merion Township. Crystal was dating Matt Green at the time, and the invitation came through that connection. During the ride to the gathering at 2:57 a.m., Toni texted her daughter, who said she couldn't sleep. Toni told her daughter she would be home soon, and the last text the little girl ever received from her mother was, "I hope you can get to sleep. See you soon. Love you, babe." Around 3:15 a.m., they arrived at Willie Green's house. What happens next depends on who you ask. Accounts of the gathering differ, and most of what's known comes from memory, not evidence. Inside, the group was drinking. They played a board game, Taboo. At some point, Toni made a remark to Crystal that Willie interpreted as racially offensive. Accounts say it wasn't meant that way, but Willie made it clear he was upset. Crystal reportedly tried to smooth things over by referencing Toni's daughter. Instead of easing the tension, the comment may have made things worse. The mood shifted. Toni already felt people were laughing at her. That feeling intensified. She got upset, then angry. At one point, she reportedly dumped a bottle of champagne on the floor, started kicking things. Crystal left the room, headed outside toward the pool. Right as she was about to dive in, Willie approached her and said, "Your friend is freaking out. You have to get her out of here." As they gathered their things, Crystal tried to take the car keys. She said she'd had less to drink. She didn't think either of them should be driving, but Toni took the keys back. She was still crying, still angry, still accusing Crystal of joining in the ridicule. As they walked out, someone inside reportedly called after them, "Don't hit any parked cars," and laughter followed. The two women got in the Pontiac and drove off. That moment, pulling away from the house, is one of the last confirmed sightings of Toni Sharpless. Inside the house, someone reportedly made one final joke. "Hope she remembers to put it in reverse." More laughter. Back in the car, the tension didn't fade. If anything, it escalated. Crystal later told police that neither of them should have been behind the wheel. She reminded Toni of her 2008 DUI. Toni was still crying, still accusing, still convinced Crystal had turned on her. The argument boiled over. Toni pulled the car over and told Crystal to get out. It was only a few hundred feet from the house, close enough to walk, far enough to be alone. Crystal stepped out, Toni drove off. The taillights vanished into the dark, and then nothing. No one saw where she went. No one knows what happened next. The record from that point on? Silent. Fragments remain. Phone data, partial timelines, unanswered questions. Crystal told police she waited nearby, just off Hollow Road, beneath the I-76 overpass, hoping Toni would cool down and come back. The people in the house were waving her back in, but she was way too embarrassed to return to that house. She waited alone, called Toni's phone once, twice. Both calls at 4:53 a.m. and 4:59 a.m. went straight to voicemail. Around an hour later, she called her nephew for a ride home. By daylight, there was still no word from Toni. No calls, no texts, no trace. Every line that might have connected her had already gone quiet.
I tried to stay, I swear I did, but ghosts won't let me live.
Toni was gone, and no one, not her friend, not her family, knew it yet. Crystal Johns was the first to speak up. That morning, still rattled from the fight and being left on the side of the road, she called Toni's sister Candy. She was angry, tired, complaining that Toni had abandoned her. She said she'd swing by later to drop off some of Toni's belongings, but Candy stopped her cold. Toni hadn't come home. That's when Crystal knew something was wrong. She went to the police, filed a report. At that point, it seemed more likely that Toni had crashed somewhere, lost control, veered off the road, maybe fell asleep behind the wheel. No one was thinking foul play. Not yet. But as the hours passed and then more, the fear crept in. Toni's family waited. They hoped she'd walk through the door, tired and angry, but fine. They called her phone, they called her friends, but the phone stayed silent, and after 18 hours, they knew this wasn't right. Candy filed a missing persons report, and the search for Toni Lee Sharpless began. Toni's friends and family sprang into action. Flyers were printed and taped to storefronts, light poles, and car windows across Philadelphia and Lower Merion. Police bulletins were issued for her car, a black 2002 Pontiac Grand Prix GT. Her information was entered into the national law enforcement databases, including one run by the FBI. Investigators subpoenaed Toni's financial and phone records. No credit card activity, no ATM withdrawals, no purchases for gas, even though she'd been running low. Her cell phone, no outgoing calls, no texts, no data use. Nothing, just silence. The phone had either died or been shut off. Just before 4 a.m. That was the last digital trace of Toni Sharpless. Police interviewed the party guests. Soon after the report was filed, police turned their attention to the last place Toni had been seen, Willie Green's home. They questioned everyone who had been at the party. Willie Green himself, his brother Matt, Crystal Johns, all gave the same story. Toni became upset, caused a disturbance, and left the house on her own. Willie was reportedly very cooperative. So was everyone else at the house. Each person gave the same version of events. Toni had been upset. She drove off, alone. Police had no reason and no legal grounds to search the house or the property. Not without conflicting stories, not without a crime scene. Willie Green was never considered a suspect. Those close to him say he felt horrible about what happened, and so did Crystal. But guilt didn't leave a trail, and no one knew where to look. The case wasn't cold yet, but it was cooling. And then someone else showed up. Someone who wasn't willing to wait around. His name is Tim Miller, founder of Texas EquiSearch. And he didn't come to sit in meetings. He arrived in Philadelphia quietly. No media crew, no formal invite. Just a suitcase, a sonar unit, and a promise to help. That night, he went straight to Gladwin, to the last place Toni was seen, to the edge of the woods, the roads that twist toward the river. He stood there in the dark and listened to the stillness. The next morning, Miller and a borrowed boat were in the Schuylkill River. He turned on his sonar. Within minutes, he found 5 submerged vehicles. Police officers watched from the banks, reportedly stunned at how quickly he located them. Over the next few days, 12 sunken cars were identified in total. Some had been there for years. 9 were confirmed stolen. 3 had no VINs. None of them were Toni's. But what came next was harder to accept. Miller was told that police would return on Thursday with divers, that the vehicles would be recovered, that they'd be checked just in case. But Thursday came and went, so did the promise, no divers. No cars pulled up, no follow-up. Miller left Philadelphia, and for Toni's family, the silence came rushing back in. The river didn't give up any answers, just old wrecks. Other people's secrets, not Toni's. When Texas EquiSearch packed up, it felt like the last hope was leaving them. No car, no crash, no sign of her. And for a while, nothing. No movement, no leads, no noise. But then, 2 weeks later, a flicker, September, Camden, New Jersey, just across the river from where Toni vanished. An automated license plate reader, mounted on a patrol car, scanned and pinged a match. Toni Sharpless's license plate. The black Pontiac Grand Prix, missing since August 23rd. But no one saw it happen. The officer assigned to the cruiser wasn't inside the vehicle at the time. The ping came and went, buried in a sea of data that wouldn't be reviewed until later. Days passed before the hit was even noticed. By the time Lower Merion police were alerted, the moment, whatever it had been, was already gone. No surveillance video was pulled, no follow-up search turned up the car, and the automated system couldn't confirm the state on the plate, only the number. A perfect match, but not enough to act on. Was it her car? Or just a cruel coincidence? Police searched Camden quietly, briefly, nothing. The lead went cold, and in late October, official records show investigators closed the file on the tip. Not the case, just that thread. No evidence, no sightings, no explanation. Just one lonely ping from a car that was missing, and a system that noticed too late.
Through the fog I hear a name. It sounds like mine but not the same. Footsteps echo far away. Who's the hunter? Who's the prey?
The official search was quieting down. No car, no phone, no leads. But Toni's family wasn't finished. Her mother, Donna Neville, wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating, and wasn't accepting silence as an answer. "It's like you're in a big black hole," she said. "No way to turn, no bottom, no top, just nothing." Days passed, then weeks, still no movement. In this day and age of surveillance and technology and so much information with Facebook and social media, "I just don't know why someone hasn't found something," said Peter Neville. And then someone knocked. Not from the police, not from the press, but from someone who couldn't let it go. Her name was Eileen Law, a private investigator out of Kennett Square. Law had seen a lot in 30 years, but when she watched a segment about Toni on Nancy Grace, it wasn't just the mystery that caught her. It was the family left behind. She reached out to them, met with Toni's parents, and when she walked in the door, Toni's little girl ran straight up to her, eyes red, voice shaking. "Please find my mommy." Law took the case for $1, a symbolic fee. The bill still sits on her desk. Eileen started from scratch. She went to where Toni was last seen, talked to family, pulled in tips, tracked sightings. Some were false, some were forgettable, but one tip stayed with her. A woman working overnight security claimed she saw a black sedan abandoned beneath an overpass in Camden, just after crossing the Benjamin Franklin Bridge. She called it in, but the Camden police? They had no record of the call. Law began circling Camden. Too many sightings, too many half-clues. Something felt off, and something felt deliberate. Donna's doubts were growing too. She wanted to believe Toni had sent that final text to her daughter, but sometimes in her gut she didn't. Something about it didn't sound like her. Was someone trying to cover Toni's tracks? She was also growing more suspicious of Crystal. The polygraph meant nothing to her, and Willie Green? No call to the family, no public statement, just silence. "You'd think," Peter Neville said, "if someone disappears after being at your house, you'd at least make a phone call." Law kept digging. She believed Toni had gone the wrong direction that night, onto the eastbound side of the expressway, not west, toward Camden and away from home. She knew Toni had a poor sense of direction, that she was tired, that the car was low on gas. What if she ran out? What if she asked the wrong kind of person for help? Law didn't just think Toni was missing. She began to suspect she was being moved, that she was alive, maybe trapped, maybe being trafficked. The theory was painful, but at least it meant she was still out there. When Investigation Discovery came calling, Law took them to every dark corner she'd been to, every whisper of a lead, every Camden block where a tip had pointed. The episode aired in 2011, but Law never stopped. She followed the case into the Pine Barrens of New Jersey and beyond. Because the truth had to be somewhere. Toni's car hadn't just vanished. She hadn't just vanished. Someone had to know.
Whispers pulling me near. A melody soft, only hearts can hear.
In the months and years that followed Toni's disappearance, the tips did come, but not all of them were helpful. Some were cruel. There were phone calls, strange ones, a man claiming she'd been trafficked in Mexico, another posing as an agent from CSIS, Canada's intelligence agency, with alleged inside knowledge. A few demanded money in exchange for information. None of them led anywhere. Each time the phone rang, her family held their breath. Each time it led to nothing. And then years later in 2013, something different arrived. A letter mailed anonymously, addressed to private investigator Eileen Law. Inside, a story. Wild, detailed, and very specific. Dear Eileen Law, the police in PA do not have a tip line. I tried calling the Philly police where I live, but they said it was not in their jurisdiction. One of the detectives pulled me aside and gave me your name and address. In the last few days of September 2009, a friend in Camden called me and offered me money to move a car from Brooklawn, New Jersey to Boston, Massachusetts. He told me he would pay me $5,000 cash, plus I could have the plates. He asked if I knew anyone 27 or 29 that wanted to paper trip, so he gave me a social security card. I drove the car, a black 4-door Pontiac Grand Prix, and drove to an auto body shop outside of Boston. I took off the plates and with a black magic marker, wrote down the last 5 digits of the VIN number and cleared out the glove box. I came back to Camden a day later and he told me that the car was not stolen but missing. He said a friend of his, a cop in Camden, got into a fight with a girl. She died and he needed to get the car out of Jersey. About a month ago, my daughter was playing in the garage and found the box with the plates and the social security card. I'd forgotten all about it. The plates are DND 7772, the SS card, and the last 5 digits of the VIN are. Because of Hurricane Sandy, I had to visit Jersey to help friends clean up. I decided to drop you this letter. What happened to Toni, I don't really know. All I know is that she had a run-in with the police, and I was paid much-needed cash to get the car to a shop in Boston. No return address, no name. Just a letter, and somehow, it knew everything. Tori's license plate, DND 7772, her cell number, the last 5 digits of the VIN, all of it dead on accurate. This wasn't like the hoax calls. It wasn't vague, it wasn't frantic. It didn't sound unwell, it sounded calculated and calm. Like someone had thought it through for a long, long time. And behind it all, a man in Camden, a cop allegedly, who according to the letter got in a fight with a girl, she died? And maybe a lie or maybe not. Eileen Law turned the letter over to the police. An investigation followed, but there were no arrests, no confirmed suspects, no way to track the sender. And still, no Toni, no car, no answers, just a story in the dark mailed 4 years too late, and a box in someone's garage that might have held everything, or nothing. But that's the thing about this case. Every path looks like it might lead somewhere, and every time it ends in fog. Toni's disappearance doesn't leave answers, it leaves shadows. And from those shadows come theories. Some make sense, some are harder to believe. But one by one, they all try to answer the same impossible question. What happened to Toni Sharpless?
The clock ticks loud, it mocks the room. Time won't heal, it just consumes.
When someone disappears, investigators always start close. Family, friends, whoever saw them last. And in Toni's case, that means Crystal Johns. And the people at the party. Toni's family has long had doubts. They never trusted Crystal, not since a falling out years earlier that no one ever really explained. Toni's parents were uneasy about their going out that night. And when they didn't come home, they were left with more questions than answers. Many of Toni's friends and family found it hard to believe that Toni would just kick another woman out of her car in the dark. A friend of Toni's later said Toni would never leave another woman on a dark street in Philadelphia. Toni's mom even started to question if the final text from her daughter's phone was actually written by Toni at all. She also expressed frustration that no one ever searched Willie Green's house. Willie, a then player for the Philadelphia 76ers, hosted the party that night, and he has never spoken publicly about what happened. Not to the family, not to the media. A lot of people felt he could have used his fame to get the word out about a missing woman, especially since she was last seen at his home. But police did question everyone extensively. Crystal Johns gave full account, and she herself demanded a polygraph to quiet all the accusations and speculation online, which she passed. Phone records confirmed her version of the timeline, and no evidence ever placed her with Toni after the drop-off. Willie Green was also questioned. Police said he was fully cooperative. He also confirmed the timeline and explained why Toni was asked to leave. And he answered every question they had. He was never considered a suspect, and neither was Crystal. And neither were the other guests at the party. Neighbors, witnesses, all of them were spoken to. All said the same thing about Toni driving off. Even Eileen Law, who spent years on the case, believes her. She said Crystal let her in unannounced, answered hard questions for hours, and appeared genuinely distraught. So, could something have happened at the party that night? Something Crystal's hiding? I suppose it's not impossible, but based on what's known, it's also just not supported. I'll be honest, I personally believe Crystal. I think they went to a party and Crystal got a bit out of her depth. I just don't think she had any idea of how bad things were getting. But if her version of events is true, if Toni really did drive off alone, angry and unraveling, then what happened next? It's 5 a.m. Toni is crying, exhausted, impaired. She'd just left a house full of strangers. People she felt were laughing at her. A joke. The angry girl in the kitchen. She's still upset, mad enough to leave her friend behind, in the middle of the road in the dark. She's driving, alone. According to her friend Crystal, her gas tank was really low. Her phone may be losing charge. It had been on since 9:30. And it's still dark out. Late August in Pennsylvania, sunrise won't come for nearly another hour. She doesn't know these roads. Tight curves, thick trees. Pockets where the Schuylkill River runs just below the edge. No lights, no guardrails, no one out this early. If a car slips, it disappears. And so does Toni. No sound, no help, no trace. But according to law enforcement, they looked. When Toni disappeared, one of the first theories police considered was the river. She was impaired, sleep-deprived. The roads were dark and unfamiliar. It was a real possibility. Police would later state that they were mostly certain Toni's car was not in the river. But mostly certain isn't the same as certain. They searched one area of the Schuylkill, but not every stretch, not every curve. And not all accidents leave cars in rivers. Sometimes they're hidden by something simpler, like time or trees. Some have asked a darker question. Did Toni mean to disappear? Did the night become too much? It's a painful theory, one her family doesn't believe, but still, it has to be examined. Crystal said she was shocked by Toni's behavior. She'd never seen her like that before. If she hadn't been with her the whole night, she might have assumed Toni was on something, but she wasn't. Not as far as Crystal knew. So what happened? Toni had been up for 36 hours. She was drinking, and she was on medication for bipolar disorder. Any one of those things could affect judgment, but together, that combination can be dangerous. Psychiatric meds, especially mood stabilizers or antipsychotics, don't mix well with alcohol. And sleep deprivation, it amplifies everything. Mood swings, irritability, confusion, even paranoia. In rare cases, that can lead to a manic crash, a panic spiral, an impulsive decision you can't take back. So could that explain Toni's outburst at the party? The tears, the rage? Maybe. Could it explain why she drove away so fast, alone, emotional, angry? Maybe. But even if she was spiraling, there's no proof she meant to end her life. I can't get past the text she sent her daughter just before 3 a.m. Hope you could get to sleep. See you soon. Love you, babe. That doesn't sound like a goodbye. It sounds like a mother fully intending to come home. Toni had a job, a child, a home she was expected to return to. But even that doesn't make someone immune to a bad reaction. If what Crystal witnessed was the result of exhaustion, alcohol, and a medication interaction, it could explain the volatility, the tears, the anger, the impulsive decision to drive off. What it doesn't explain is a disappearance without evidence. Even in cases of sudden impulsive self-harm, something's usually left behind. A car, a location, a trace. Here, there's nothing. And without her car, without Toni, this theory runs into the same wall as the last one. After weeks turned into months, the story began to shift. Not towards answers, but towards sightings. Calls started coming in. Tips, glimpses. I think I saw her. A woman who looked like Toni outside a convenience store. Someone matching her description near a bus station. Another near Camden. Enough of them that investigators couldn't ignore it. And that's when a new idea took hold. What if Toni didn't crash? What if she didn't die that night at all? What if she left? Not forever, just away. Some believed the night became too much. The humiliation, the exhaustion, the fight. Maybe she didn't want to go home yet. Maybe she wanted to escape, even if only for a few hours. There were whispers, speculation, Toni's past, old habits, a stop that wasn't supposed to happen. What if Toni went looking for something to numb the night, to take the edge off? And what if, somewhere along the way, she didn't make it back? Because leaving voluntarily doesn't mean staying safe. Especially without money, without a phone, without a plan. And if Toni was vulnerable, tired, impaired, and alone, that vulnerability didn't end when she left the road. For some, the sightings meant hope. For others, something darker. Because if Toni was alive and no one had heard from her, then maybe she wasn't free. Toni had been under pressure, trying to rebuild but still carrying the weight of her past. And in the weeks after her disappearance, some began to wonder, did she just walk away? To start over? To disappear? To self-destruct? Eileen Law didn't think so, but she wasn't ruling it out either, because the tips kept coming. And they all pointed to one place, Camden. Sex workers, pimps, drug houses. They all claimed the same thing. They'd seen Toni. Not once, but multiple times. Several people had seen her, Law said. What's more, they wanted to go to different sections where drugs were involved in prostitution. In total, Law received more than 50 tips. Some were vague, others were detailed. One woman described Toni's piercings and markings on her body. Details only someone close might know. Or someone who had seen her recently. Law followed every lead. She put up posters, knocked on doors, spoke to sex workers who said they recognized her. They claimed Toni had been seen crouching in an alley with two men, either counting money or doing drugs. One woman said she was with two men, one thin Hispanic with a goatee, and a large black man built like a football player. And Eileen didn't stop there. She hit the streets, pounded on doors of suspected drug dens, walked the alleys where truckers picked up girls for $5 or $10. She even chased the lead into a club in a Midwestern city where a dancer claimed Toni had worked recently, describing her in exact intimate detail, piercings, scars, markings her mother later confirmed. Was it really Toni? There was no proof, but something about it all was hard to ignore. In this day and age, law said, how does someone vanish with a car? How does no one find it? It's not a theory Toni's family embraces. They know her heart. They know her daughter was her world. But the idea persists that maybe she didn't just disappear. Maybe she was taken or lured away and then trapped in something she couldn't escape. Some say drugs played a role, that she may have relapsed or gone looking for something to take the edge off and stumbled into the wrong circle. Others believe it was human trafficking, that she was moved, controlled, silenced, that she's still out there just waiting to be found. It's a theory that casts a long shadow because if it's true, then Toni may still be alive. But when you really step back, there's a problem with this theory. Several, actually. Toni wasn't a runaway teen. She wasn't a transient. She was a 29-year-old nurse with a child, a license, a full-time job, and she was on the news, fast. Her photo, her plate number, her face. Human trafficking is real and it's horrific. But traffickers don't typically snatch high-profile women with nursing degrees and entire police departments looking for them. It's too risky, too visible. And if Toni had gone underground, voluntarily or not, where's the trail? No phone activity, no bank cards, no attempts to access money, not even her car. Someone, even a criminal, would have wanted that. The car, the cash, something. But nothing was ever touched, which leaves us with a darker question. If Toni didn't run, and she wasn't taken for profit, what happened to her?
The rain taps soft on the window pane. Each drop falls with a trace of your name. I chase the echoes, they slip.
In 2013, someone claimed to know. They didn't call, they didn't show up, they wrote. You've already heard the letter. The details were chilling, real, specific. Too specific? Toni's license plate, her phone number, the final digits of her VIN, information that hadn't been widely publicized, at least not in one place. It sounded like a confession, like someone knew exactly what happened and wanted to clear their conscience. But the longer you sit with it, the more it starts to unravel. Police out of jurisdiction over a murder case? A detective handing out a PI's address instead? Over the phone and also in person? That line alone. I tried calling the Philly police. One of the detectives pulled me aside. Did you call? Or were you standing there with a detective? Because those are two very different situations. You can't have both. And even if you could, that's not how it works. Police do not turn people away with information about a potential homicide. They don't say, not our problem. And they sure as hell don't redirect you to a private investigator like it's customer service. Then there's the evidence. Toni's license plate, public knowledge. The last numbers of her VIN, you can get those from the plate alone. Especially if you work in auto repair, repossession, salvage, or dozens of other trades. This isn't secret information like people think. And think about the story. A cop supposedly kills a woman, then turns to a guy who clearly has no discretion, pays him $5,000 to move the body across state lines, and that guy just tells the whole story in a letter, years later, even naming the city, and he expects no consequences from this rogue cop. Either he's making it up, or he has a death wish, or just signed his own arrest warrant, and yet no arrests, no leads, because the story never added up. The box of evidence never found, the letter untraceable, and the guy who supposedly had all the answers gone. So is this a break in the case, a confession, or just another fantasy wrapped in just enough detail to make people want to believe it. Because when real lives are on the line, misinformation isn't just frustrating, it's cruel.
The past is a ghost that begs me to stay. Every whisper, every sigh.
So, if the rogue cop story falls apart, what's left? Something more ordinary, more believable, and maybe more frightening because of it. What if Toni didn't drive into the water? What if she didn't vanish by choice? What if she just ran out of gas? In the wrong place at the wrong time? She was alone, impaired, unfamiliar with the area. Her phone was off, no GPS. She didn't have her bank card, just a bit of cash in her purse and maybe not enough. And if she made a wrong turn, veered off into Camden or North Philly, places known for violence, open-air drug markets, no snitch zones, then what? Maybe she flagged someone down. Maybe someone offered to help. Maybe someone saw a vulnerable woman, desperate and disoriented, and took advantage. Or maybe she wasn't looking for help at all. Some have wondered, was Toni relapsing? Her behavior that night was erratic. Crystal said she was shocked. Said if she hadn't been with her all night, she might have assumed Toni was on something. And what if she was? After the fight, after being humiliated and kicked out, maybe she didn't want to go home. Maybe she wanted to disappear, to numb out, to just stop feeling for a little while. It's not impossible to imagine. And if she was looking for drugs, then Camden or anywhere nearby was a quick drive away. That same area is filled with chop shops, vacant lots, and places where people and cars vanish. A 2002 Grand Prix like Toni's would have been an easy target. By 2009, that car was a hot ticket for parts, old enough to steal quickly, still common enough on the road to make the engine, transmission, and doors valuable, and lacking the tracking systems newer cars have. It may not have been random, it may have been profit. A woman alone in a car that won't start, or maybe one who's high or looks high. Someone sees an opportunity. In that car, her only trace disappears. We don't know. But this is where the story feels real again. Not a conspiracy, not a cover-up, just a woman, vulnerable, exhausted, driving off into a city that doesn't always offer second chances. There's no proof of this, but there's no proof of anything else either. And when people vanish, sometimes it's not a master plan. Sometimes it's just one moment, the wrong street, the wrong person, the wrong time. It's not a headline-grabbing theory. It doesn't involve conspiracies or cover-ups or international crime rings. But sometimes those aren't the scariest explanations. Sometimes the scariest thing is how easy it is to disappear.
A heart I won't ship lost in a storm, never to return.
So, what happened to Toni Sharpless? A wrong turn? A crash no one saw? A choice to disappear? Or a violent encounter she didn't see coming? We don't know. All we know is that a mother vanished, a daughter is still waiting, and 15 years later, there's still no trace. But maybe you see something others have missed. Maybe you've been where she was, or maybe you just have a theory. Tell me what you think happened, and if you can, keep Toni's name alive. If you found this story important, consider liking and subscribing. It helps more people find Toni's case and others like it. Until next time, keep your lights low and your curiosity high.
She sits with me, her silence loud